Record. All right, everybody. Looks like we got everybody that has enrolled. Leo, you still there? I see your camera's blacked out. So this is what we're going to be talking about today, y'all. Change management. This is the micro learning session with MVP Training Solutions. This is my contact information here. So we definitely look forward to hearing from you all as we move forward. Thank you all for being here. And we will get started. Let's see. Sometimes my clicker don't work as well. Okay. So just going over some rules for the open discussion itself. Keep cameras on, silence whatever distractions you may have around you. Listen, respectively to your cohorts. Kind of commit to learning something out of the session itself, allowing everybody to chat, to talk and engage and be involved, things like that. Be active in the discussion. I love to hear the stories, things like that you all will be sharing along the way, especially as it relates to the topic of change. These are the topics we'll be discussing today. All right. So, what is change management? So as you all know, what I like to do is to hear from you first and foremost, without trying to put a definition on change management. What does change management mean to you? What do you think it is? What is it not, in your opinion? And again, you can throw that out there. There's no rhyme or no reason, no need to hold up your hand, things like that. What is it and what is it not?
Well, I think it is the changing of the times, implementing new things to the company to move forward with what is happening out in the world.
Adaptation.
Adaptation. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. I see that. What else? Anybody else out there?
So I would definitely agree with Asbury. It is adaptation. At least within a corporate setting, to a degree. It can also be, in a military sense, change of command in a business. New CEOs, different types of people in charge, different things like that can necessitate the need to manage change. I mean, change is going to happen no matter what you do. The difference is, can you manage it or not?
Right.
And I think that's the idea.
Right. Key. Thank you, Leo. Anything else? Okay. So let's take a quick look. So if you look on the left side, change management is, right? On the right side, change management is not. Change management is not random chaos, right? It's not based on implementing new technologies or processes. It's not about dictating the change without any consideration for the individuals that's going to be involved in the change. But what it is a continuous process, not just a one-time event. We all know change is the most constant thing in all of our lives, right? We see it everywhere in every aspect of our lives. It recognizes and manages risks associated with that change, right? It provides that support, those resources for to the tools to implement the change, get through the change, and for the organization as well as the people involved in that change process. So again, just some things about what it is and what it is not, as you see listed there. So understanding the need for change management. Again, as most of you all know, what I'll be talking about, I'll just be skimming the surface of what's in your actual ebook there that hopefully you were able to go through and check out. And the questions that you see on the screen there are directly from the ebook. And again, it'll give you an opportunity to we'll give you an opportunity to share your thoughts about the questions and things like that along the way, right? So in a nutshell, kind of change management is essential for mitigating resistance by proactively addressing employees' concerns, uncertainties, their doubts, thereby ultimately fostering that their understanding, their acceptance, and their cooperation during that change process. Again, we're not talking about the change, we're talking about management of the change. There are two different things, right? So effective change management is crucial for minimizing disruptions, maintaining continuity in the organization, managing transitions smoothly within the organization, ultimately safeguarding the organization and their people against the unnecessary delays in productivity or productivity losses caused ultimately by that shift or that change related disruption. And we know what that looks like in our individual industries, things like that. But it's going to be different for everybody, right? Change management kind of plays a vital role in maximizing adoption and engagement by fostering a shared understanding of the change's necessity. Why are we doing this, right? Effectively communicating its vision, its the benefits, and actively involving the employees of the change, because the employees are going to want to know, why are we doing this? And you have to have an effective communication strategy, right, to convey why we're doing this and their benefits. This is our vision for it. This is what we're hoping to achieve at the end of it, so forth and so on, right? So change management is instrumental in achieving the desired outcomes by aligning the change initiatives with the organizational strategic objectives, making clear or clearly defining and tracking desired outcomes, and providing a structured approach, keyword, a structured approach to assessing progress and using predetermined benchmarks and criteria. Keyword, key phrases, structured approach, and how are we going to use a predetermined benchmarks and criteria. And we'll talk about key performance indicators, things like that a little bit later. So those are some 30,000 foot view thoughts, takeaways from the material that you all have in your book. So let's discuss the questions that you see there. Right. So let's look at question one. Anybody want to tackle question one in your experiences, right? We're talking about you. Can you identify instances where organizations has resisted implementing change management? We knew the change was coming, but we didn't do a whole lot about it, right? What were some of the consequences of neglecting that need for that structured change management process? Anybody out there?
I think I have one, but I'm not sure.
Okay, sure.
It wasn't my experience. It's just an experience that I've gotten from like seeing on TV. Starbucks and the unionization of a Starbucks.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah, that's
So,
legit.
Yeah.
That's a legit change that happened that the management really was resistant to.
Exactly.
Really resistant to. You know, and so obviously they weren't prepared to have a discussion about change. So they had no plan in place to manage the change that was going to come. So it was a really hard move, right? A hard change for a long period of time for a lot of people. Yeah, that's a great example. That's a great example. Anybody else?
Yeah, there's the industry that I'm in right now with which is rural broadband. We are in a huge transition, and it's something that, coming out of my background and where I come from, I can see it, but the industry in itself is such a dinosaur in how it thinks, how it does anything. There's no looking forward to what's coming and trying to see it. We're highly regulated by the federal government, and coming from all of these internet service providers in these rural areas are telecom companies. So they're small telephone companies, and the regulatory stuff that we deal with comes from the telephone side. It's 50 or 60 or 100 years old, it's just related to the plain old telephone system, and nobody's
Right.
using that anymore. We use these.
Yeah.
So we're in this transition process of transitioning to broadband, and all of our regulatory structure is built around the telephone system, the
Right.
old fashioned telephone system. So
Mm.
when you build networks and you build, put in fiber internet in the rural areas, it's extremely costly. So we need those regulatory dollars to recover some of that additional cost, because where I live, there's 7 people per square mile of land.
Mm.
And as opposed to a typical city, just 20 miles down the road, the city of
Right.
Superior,
Right.
has 200 people per square mile. So
Yeah.
when you're basing all your revenue on each person that you connect to,
Right.
if
Yeah.
you're in a
Yeah.
rural area and it costs you $100,000 to bury a mile of fiber, and you got 10 customers on that mile of fiber, takes an awful long time to recover your costs.
Yeah.
That's where our regulatory dollars tend to go. And
Mm-hmm.
yet the
Mm-hmm.
government is still looking at us as a telephone company. So they're looking at our regulatory dollars and wanting to take those away. And I don't
Right.
blame them.
Right.
That's just the way it is. But as an industry, we're looking at this. We're not looking at this in as, how can we adapt to these changes? How can we build
Right.
a
Oh,
structure
right.
that's going
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
support
Yeah.
it? So we're building to try and maintain those regulatory revenues at any way possible. How do we keep that regulatory
Yeah.
dollar, instead of looking at ways to sell new products or develop new tools or build a more efficient and more effective network?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I fight on a regular basis, which is why I
Yeah.
was glad we were going to talk about change management today, because
Yeah. 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 Well, good. Good. And that's a great example too. And especially when you're talking about a for-profit organization as opposed to a budget constrained organization, like for instance, the military, because one thing that we know is the military will spend money just to say that they spent it. Right?
that is correct.
Just to say we spent it. So that way we can get that, at least that amount the next year. Right? We have to spend it. So that's a great example. Thank you, Leo. So let's take a look at number 2. How can leaders effectively communicate the urgency? Leo talked about it, the urgency of the change, the rationale behind for change management to the stakeholders, the people that's holding the purse strings, right? For them to kind of embrace, and what tactics may be used to highlight how important this requirement is. Anybody?
Show them the data that was done last year to what's
Yeah.
going on to this year, and
Yeah.
then see if they're competing, up on that level.
Right.
So
I like that.
and if it's not up to standards, let the shareholders know, hey man,
Yeah.
we just playing right out. We're
Yeah.
not moving up, we're not going down, we just playing
Yeah.
right out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So show that data.
I love that, Asbury. That's a good point with the data.
Mhm.
I guess I would ask the question of the whole group: what do you do when the data is there, but nobody wants to actually see it? The
Exactly.
leadership is just not wanting to look at it.
Yeah.
It's like we
Exactly.
bury our heads in the sand sometimes, and
Yeah. But
the
in order
problem
to
doesn't
change,
exist until it hits me really,
yeah.
till
But
it
in
takes
order
me
to
out like a
change,
bus.
you gotta see that data, whether you want to see it or not.
Right.
You gotta see that data.
Yeah.
So,
And I assert, Leo, they see the data.
oh
They
yeah.
do. They do.
Whoever that they are, they see the data. Ultimately, what they're deciding to do with that knowledge is what's going to make the difference. Right?
That's a very true statement.
They see the knowledge, trust and believe. They're looking at the same metrics that you are, and whomever's responsible for briefing that data. Absolutely, they see. It's just the choices that they're going to make. They may not feel or experience the ramifications in their term, maybe 5-10 years down the road, but somebody's showing them that data. Yeah.
That's true.
That's a great thoughts there. How about number 3? When examining industries prone to rapid change, like technological organizations and like for, the healthcare, how does the need for change management differ in those than in more stable sectors? Right? And what unique challenges arise in environments characterized by constant change? So it's two-part there, right? How do they differ from a more stable environment? And then what are some of the unique challenges in the environments that are used to constant change, like technology, like healthcare, that type of stuff? Anybody out there?
I guess I'll jump over this one a little bit.
Yeah.
When you look at those, most times those industries, if they don't change, they get left behind. When I worked for Amazon, Jeff Bezos, he had a little talking thing, and he said, "I gave my peers, those other companies, I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What if we do this?" And they was like, "Nah, you're stupid." And so they just moved on, and then the money never stopped for him. And he was like, "Now I don't answer those guys' phone calls." But like the Walmarts and all those guys, "Hey, you should do this. You should offer this." "Nah, man, you sell books. You don't know any better. You don't know anything about." But he was like, "But I'm a customer."
Right.
And I think in those industries, if they don't make those changes, they get left behind.
Yeah.
It's like, everybody in here is flocked from one cell phone company to the next cell phone, from one type of phone to the next type of phone.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it's what's better.
Yeah.
I have this, you go get the biggest iPhone, it's the worst phone ever.
Right.
You
Yeah.
get that brand, it is the absolute worst. You go get a little small one, the one that they don't make anymore is the best phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Apple just makes phones.
Right.
They don't get with now you go to Samsung, every new Samsung phone is an improvement. It's a better phone.
And
It's
I
a
hate
better
them.
phone. It
I
does,
hate it.
and it does more and more and more. But Apple doesn't. They're still struggling with that change.
That's a great point. I love your example of Amazon, Sean, because I just did a LinkedIn post about a week ago on Amazon. This industry that I'm in the broadband industry and building broadband in the rural areas, Amazon is such a disruptor for everybody, and they don't. And it's amazing because companies don't seem to see it coming. They should. It should be obvious to them. I mean, they come up and they disrupt FedEx and they disrupt UPS and they disrupt the retail market. It's just amazing. And now they got their sights set on rural broadband. They're starting to launch satellites, and they're going to start doing this. And I keep going to my peers in this industry, and I'm like, guys, you got to pay attention to this. They're early in the beginning stages of this. We probably got 3 to 5 years before they're going to try and just wipe us out. But that's not very much time. I mean, we're an industry that our roots are in telephone. That when you talk about stable companies, telephone didn't change for 100 years, and they didn't have to do anything. They just sat there, and you had a telephone that hung on the wall, and you picked it up and it worked, and
it was a
you
static
paid your
industry.
bill every month, and that was all you did, and it just didn't have to change. And now for the last 25 years, the industry is changing. And now we're facing, in these rural markets, we're facing competition we've never seen before. And it's just, the industry does not know how to look at it. They don't have any idea what's coming for them. And I keep trying to say, Amazon doesn't need to charge $75 for an internet connection. They can charge 20 or 30, and they can get the data, and they can get they can give them Prime, and they can collect. I mean, they'll supplement their stuff. And we're sitting there looking, well, in order to turn a profit, we have to have all of this and this and this. Amazon can come in and do it for a third of that price. They may not be able to compete with a fiber internet connection and give them a gig of internet, but none of our customers are actually using a gig of internet anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
It's I'm just like, guys, we've got to, and I'm trying to change an entire industry, which is fun, but
Yeah.
It's sometimes frustrating too. So
Yeah. Great. Those were some great points made on that too. And I just want to, the final point for me on this is just as we look at the individual industries that are out there, you know, what's it called? The bulk purchase market, you know, your Costco's and your those bulk Sam's and things like that. You know, as you mentioned, Leo, they are also disruptors because you can now go and get auto repairs at Sam's. You can rent a car from Sam's or Costco. You can, you know, you're getting gas now at a Sam's or Costco gas stations. All of these are industries that are being disrupted by one company, which is going to drive change in every one of those. You can rent a car, you can buy gold, you know, like gold bars now at the Costco. You can, you know what I mean? So now they're going into those industries, and those industries now have to pivot, and they have to learn how to do that and deploy their specific change management strategies to meet the needs of the customers in the long run. So great job on that, guys. Thank you so much. So let's look at the importance of change management, right? Change management itself employs a systemic approach, right? Systemic approach to manage people through the plan change and the projects. They're going to manage the or address concerns and facilitate that transition to the desired future state. What that future state is, we don't know. However, in the change management plan or the change management structure or the approach that the organization chooses to take should clearly identify that end strategy. What do we want to look like when we get there, right? Change management ensures the effective execution of change efforts, providing that structure, the framework, the minimization of disruptions. It fosters that understanding and reduces the anxiety amongst the employees. Why are we doing this? I don't know. I was just told to do it. But we got to know why, especially as leaders. We have to be able to convey that. We know what we were told, you know, we know what our leadership told us, how this is going to affect us. Now we got to convey that, right? It empowers our organizations to respond to that change effectively, fosters the adaptability, as Asbury mentioned, adaptability and that resilience in that face of uncertainty, which is essentially keeping us competitive and more innovative, especially in a really volatile market like telecommunication, like healthcare, right? Like education. You know, you can't turn on the news today without seeing something about education going on, right? Change management, it promotes that culture of continuous progress, right? Because we know where we are, we know where we want to be, and we can get there, but it's going to take a little while to get there. This is the framework we're going to use. And by encouraging that feedback and encouraging the learning and even iterations, like when you go and you go, this is not the direction we thought we were going to go in, let's back up a little bit. Now let's make some tweaks before we move to the next phase, right? Ultimately leading to agility, innovation, responsiveness to the change, and driving that ongoing success that we look for in that culture of continuous progress and evolution within our organizations, right? So let's take a look at the questions. Let's look at question number 1. And again, feel free to jump on any one of them that you feel comfortable talking about. What are some potential misconceptions surrounding what we talk about as the definition of change management? And how can these be clarified by you, for instance, as the leader in your organization, to ensure a shared understanding amongst you, your organization, the organizational stakeholders, your employees, and those alike? Anybody?
You know, I think I want at least one misconception in this is that change is easy, or it should be easy. I think that's something that everybody, you know, even as a leader, sometimes you think, oh, this is not that big of a deal. We can make it through this. This isn't going to be a big problem. I just think that it's a misconception at every level that this is going to be simple. We get this. It's no big deal.
Right. And do you think the person conveying the change has a responsibility of clearly, excuse me, of clearly conveying the message or the misconceptions about it being an easy change? Because I've been in organizations where it's really like played down. You know, these change may be played down considerably. You know, but then a year or two on, you're going, man, I thought this was going to be easy, right? Have y'all experienced that out there at all?
All the
I
time.
experienced it with tools.
Tools?
Implementing new machinery to the construction area. They've been used to something for so long, doing thing one way, and I implement a new tool in there, and they go like, "Oh man, I like it this way, man, because I've been doing it this way for so long that I don't think I can do it."
Yeah.
And I show them how
That's the
to
way we've
use it.
always done it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Always done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I show them a new machinery or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm not getting with that. I'm not getting with that. Okay.
Right.
Suit
Right.
yourself.
And what do you think that resistance is? Where do you think that resistance stem from? Is it the unwillingness to learn something new, or disinterest, or what do you think it stems from, Asbury?
Sometimes anything new to a person is the ignorance of not knowing how to do something. But the minute you know how to do it, you'll jump right on. Oh yeah, I got this. Oh yeah, I like this. It's cool. I really like this. So just showing someone sometimes how to do something or implementing something new to somebody is going to be hard.
Yeah.
Because they stuck in that whole repetition of doing it like this, like a robot.
Yeah. And you implement a small piece of equipment.
Yes.
Into the operation. Ideally, you're implementing it because you're wanting it to make an impact, a positive impact on the organization.
Positive impact.
Right.
Correct.
Whether it's going to be reducing the amount of time, or whether it's going to speed things up, or whether it's going to make the operation itself more safe for the people. Right. Yeah.
Amen.
I see. That's a great example. Thank you. How about number 2? Anybody out there? How does the importance of change management extend beyond just like that project, that project success? Like, in what ways will it impact the organizational culture, their employees, employee morale, long-term growth? What other ways outside of that, the launch, for instance, of a product or the implementation of a new backhoe piece of equipment in construction? What else? What are the other things you see out there?
Okay, I'm gonna jump in.
Yeah, let me see. I think I can. Let me try to mute my.
You good? Can you hear that? Okay.
Yeah.
So just change the management. So I think customer satisfaction and then loyalty. It's gonna be make a difference for the company. Yeah. It's most important why company do that, change the management, because customer satisfaction and then loyalty, it's going to be make money and they be growing their company.
Unmute Marvin.
I cannot hear you, Mom.
Unmute Marvin.
Sorry about that. Y'all good now?
Yeah.
So thank you, Yuko. That's a great thought there. That's a consideration that should be made part of every organization. I think it gets missed because ultimately every functional area is thinking about their functional area. So the HR people are going to be thinking about HR stuff. Logistics people are going to be thinking about their logistics stuff, right? And sometimes I think the customer aspect of that gets lost in that change. So that was a very good point there, especially if we're talking about customer loyalty. Customer loyalty, and that's internal and external customers. Because you're in HR, that means your customers are the employees of that work center, of that organization. Those are your customers. And you want them to come back to you because they know you have the right answers to their questions, right? Things like that. In a profit-driven organization, your customer base are going to be those who are going to be buying your products. Of course, you want them to come back. So great thoughts on that, Yuko. So let's take a look at number 3. When evaluating the success of change management initiatives, what key performance indicators can organizations use to measure their impact on various facets of the business? We talk about efficiencies, innovation, customer satisfaction, right? Customer loyalty. So what things, like, for instance, you want to roll out this product that's going to change the market a bit. What are you going to do in your organization to kind of monitor? What type of data products are you going to be looking for? What things do you look for in your organization to determine if it worked?
I guess I'll jump this. So repeat business. Who comes back? For our instance, for my where I sit now.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a plan for future classrooms, we're going to start with the 5th grade, because they dump and leave. They spend a year with us and then they're gone. We can never recover if the student doesn't do well or whatever. So it's kind of it's a loss. So we decided, hey, we're going to set the students based on their educational level. One of the things it does, it minimizes all the problems. And when sitting with the principal, I say, so what happens is we have a lot of families go there, 3, 4, 5 kids, and for years we deal with this one in the 3rd grade, this one in the 1st grade, this one in the kindergarten. But if we set that change, we'll see they'll take them somewhere else because they no longer get free run of the school. They, and I explained to her, students who don't deliver to the school, they have problems with the school. Their families have problems with the school. The grandmas back home have problems with the school. The students that do good, get good grades, great test scores, there's no problems. You never have to sit them and their parents down and have a meeting and decide that we had to do this again. So what will happen, and get back on topic, you'll lose the customer base that didn't like the change. That's how you'll see. They'll just move on.
Yeah. And
the ones that like the change will bring more customers with them.
And in your area, in your field, you have things like exams, and you have quizzes, you have tests, you have state level tests, you have district, so you have built-in metrics to see whether or not a change that was initiated 2 years ago at that school by one principal who's no longer there, 2 years later, we are still in this situation based on what the data, as Asbury mentioned, based on what the data is saying about our teaching practices, our metrics. So you all have some built-in data metrics, key performance indicator.
Yeah, the district gave us a reading program 3 days before the school started, and they've been still giving us training on the program throughout the year, but we had to teach it.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
We had to use it and follow it. I mean, it's an intensive program, week to week to week to week. You can't get off track. You have to stay on the pacing, but we've never seen it before.
Right.
They're doing the training in April that they should have done last July.
Right.
Before school started.
And are you all privy to, for instance, the data that they're tracking progress of this rollout of this new implemented curriculum?
Well, because we administer the test, we have the data. If you don't administer the test in their system, they don't have your data. So we figured that out months into it.
Okay.
So, it's sort of coming back, well, look at your students are doing this. And I'm like, well, what are you getting that for? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So we
Okay.
put it
So
on paper.
you have to upload it into their system for them to see what y'all are doing.
Exactly.
It's all computer based. So
Yeah.
you set it into the student gets a link to it and he takes the
Yeah.
test on the
Yeah.
computer, he or she. Well, then
Yeah.
they have your data.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's interpretive. So we started putting it on paper. So
Yeah.
now I have all the tests.
You're right.
Actually, there's in my backpack. But
Yeah.
so now they can't see the data and say, well, you're doing it wrong. Well, you can't tell me I'm doing it wrong on something you didn't tell me about.
Right.
You didn't show me how to effectively use it.
And just like as Leo mentioned early on, we talked about early on about what do we do when they're not using the data, or they don't want to use the data, that type of stuff. And we have to, as leaders, we have to be prepared to make sure they get the information, use the KPIs. And we have to explain how this improved our processes along the way and made us more innovative in our approaches to the business model, things like that. And then ultimately, what they choose to do with that information will be left to them, So that was a great example, Marquise. Thank you. Let's take a look at, let's see. Let's look at the impact of change on the individual and the organization, right? The individual and the organization. Because they have different effects. I assert they have different effects. You may assert differently, right? But I know that change triggers emotions, right? It could be excitement, it could be fear. It's going to be influenced by personality, their mind, the individual mindsets, and past experience, right? But how does change do that? Well, because some people are going to view that change as growth opportunities, right? I would think the leader would think, this is a good thing for us. This is going to be awesome. While others might feel like, new piece of equipment. I was good with the old equipment that we've been using, right? Which is going to drive some resistance, things like that, right? So change can also be disrupt a person's sense of job security and stability, ultimately leading to things like anxiety, stress, due to potential shifts in their roles and responsibilities, even job losses caused by the organizational restructuring, right? And the processes that were being used, how that may have changed, or the technology that has been improved, how the advancements in technology, how that has now moved people out of being useful. Change often also necessitates things like acquiring new knowledge, new skills, right? Enhancing my existing ones to adapt to the new technologies, processes, and ways of thinking. People say, oh, well, robots are taking our jobs. What, in like warehousing. Well, those robots actually may be saving your life 20 years from now, because 20 years from now, you won't have that low back problem from that repetitive movement. Also, keep in mind that robot is now doing far more tasks more efficiently than like the humans would do that particular task, right? And now we need people who understand how to operate these robots to keep these robots in operational for the organization. So it's always a battle. You probably heard that before out there, things like that. But it is an opportunity to acquire some new skills. The change is going to affect our work relationships. Think about that, especially when you're in a team, because it may alter the lines of how we report our information or who we go to next up the level of chain, things like that, that overall composition of the team, and how we, collaborate, because that change may involve a piece of technology or a new process that we now only need 2 people on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's going to change that considerably, especially from an individual perspective. Now, if we're just looking at from the organizational perspective, that change is going to, could potentially disrupt productivity initially. But if it's done right, it can lead to enhanced productivity and performance. Again, one could think, well, how does it do that? Well, because successful change initiatives are going to streamline operations, improve efficiencies, optimize resource allocation, right? Benefiting the organization in the long run. I have no doubt when change happens, it's not malicious. It might feel like it. They're just trying to get rid of me. But as a leader, we need to take into account the bigger picture than, Mr. Johnson's job. We got to think broader, more broad than that. And then change ultimately influence the organizational culture, right? By reshaping the norms and the values. Well, we always did it this way. Well, we're not going to do that anymore, Mr. Johnson. You know what I'm saying? We're not doing that anymore. And these are the 10 reasons why we're not going to be doing that anymore. Because ultimately, change provides an opportunity to cultivate that positive and adaptive culture that I would hope most leaders would want to align with, my organizational vision and my organizational goals, my objectives, to facilitate that future state where I want to be, where we want to be as an organization, things like that. So I want to hear from you all. Let's take a look at the questions. How do individual reactions vary based on their roles within the organization? Can you provide an example of how leaders, employees, and stakeholders may or might respond differently to a change? Anybody? How would these people respond differently? And what role does emotions play?
In our organ?
Sorry about that.
Well, I think emotions play a huge role, but in our organization, we have essentially a leadership team of 5 of us, our CEO, and then the rest of our leadership team. When a decision is made and we all agree that this is going to be a good, and it's not often that happens, because oftentimes from my seat as a, sales and marketing side of the world and working in that piece,
right,
we're introducing a new product, or we want to change something that says, hey, we think we can increase revenue by X by doing this. And then we get the resistance comes from the operations team that says, that's going to require this much more support, or
right,
we're going to have to change how we do things to support that. And that's going to, disrupt everything that we're working on. So I think that even at the leadership level, we butt heads constantly to try and get some of these things worked out. But then when we do, and we start to, we work all the issues out, and we decide we're making this change, I think the first thing, Marv, a lot of our classes that we took, we talked about change management and the cycle of change, the doldrums. Right. You go from your highs to your lows, and you start to climb back out, and you'll have more drops before you start to get flat again on the other side. So
that's right.
It's definitely cyclical when it comes to that process. And I think that as the folks that are actually making it happen, the boots on the ground, the guys that are really doing the work, the guys and gals that are really doing the work, they're the ones that have a tendency to feel the biggest impacts. That's my opinion. They're the ones that the change affects them the most. Yeah. I get really excited when I'm going to introduce a new product, and I can see that this is going to raise, revenue is going to go up, and it's going to affect everybody. And this is
sure. Wow.
But
the work that will be created behind that by the folks in the field.
Exactly. So when I communicate that to my team, my managers that are on my team, they're looking at me like, Leo, what are you doing to us? We got 17 other things we're trying to get done this month. And now you want us to do this too? And I'm like, yeah, but it'll help. It's good.
Yeah.
So,
Great example.
There's
great
huge differences in how we all see it and receive it.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Leo. Let's look at number 2. In your experience, what strategies have organizations employed to alleviate the negative impact of change on employee morale and performance? How do these strategies contribute to a smoother transition process, right? What have you all seen out there in your organizations kind of help reduce the resistance or to kind of build the morale of the troops?
I'll go for this one. One of the strategies you say, I worked with of course, bringing my experience. I wish I could have my admin staff. I wish I could get them to attend so they could kind of see what I'm really trying to explain to them. There is a way to deliver things to the teams.
Yeah.
And I explained to them, I said, I've effectively gotten 3 teachers under me we all teach the exact same way, which is unheard of. I was like, but our data has been consistent with students that are progressing, students that are excelling throughout the year because we've taught them the exact same thing. We've kept them all at a high level of teaching.
Yeah.
Getting teams to understand without just saying, you guys are doing it wrong. What are you doing? I was like, you have to let them have buy-in because all educators want their students to do well. So when you present these plans of action, because I told you have to have plan of actions next year, because you're going to end up fired. Because you can't just let everybody do whatever they do and we'll see how it turns out. You can no longer operate like that. So you have to have a plan, and you have to get these people, the teachers, on board with it.
Yeah.
Because we're not teaching the same kind of people that she taught 30 years ago when she first started teaching.
Yep.
So you have to look at getting everybody on board when you're changing something.
Right.
So they feel the value.
Right.
And want to do it.
Yeah.
He excited about it because he knows he's going to make money.
Yeah.
But the worker guy,
right.
All he's thinking is his work. Oh, man, I'm going to have to work harder. But he's like, we're going to make money. We're going to we're doing what we're here to do.
The leaders' motivations are different.
The leaders' motivations are different.
Very true.
And it is so.
Sean's so right. That buy-in is so critical. And the presentation by leadership to get that buy-in is so important. and I know I've screwed it up more times than I can count when I get excited about this new product and we're going to get out there and I really probably should have talked to these guys a little more and gotten a little more feedback before I got all excited about how great this was going to be. So that buy-in is so critical.
Yeah. And and as you heard us mention before, change management is about having a structured framework for success, how we're going to get through this. And all of those things are important to make sure we move from one point to the next point, ultimately getting to our future state.
And remembering that it's probably not as easy as I think it's going to be.
That's right. I know that's right. Well, good stuff. How about question number 3? Any thoughts on that, anybody?
Okay, I'm gonna go for this one.
Let me adjust here, Yuko, so we don't get much feedback. All right, go ahead, Yuko.
Okay, so I think the one is communicate purpose and rationale. The clear communication is important to make sure the workers and they understand the changes, the purpose and reasoning.
Yeah.
The leader needs to make it clear how to change support the organization mission, vision, and strategy, and the goals.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So while also staying true to its core value.
Yeah. So that last part of that question down there, how can they prevent cultural clashes during transition? As Yuko talked about there, as you heard me mention earlier, the HR folks going to be wanting to be doing one thing. The IT folks going to be wanting to do something different. The logistics folks going to be wanting to be doing something different. The wastewater management folks going to be wanting to be doing something different. And as Yuko mentioned, if the communication is right, the leader will be able to tie in everyone's individual responsibilities and how it's going to impact negatively or positively the ultimate goal of the change itself. That's part of that strategic change management strategy and that focus. Because we want everybody on the team, because we collectively think this is a good thing. Now, initially, in Leo's case, he might think this is a good thing. But if done right, he's brought enough people onto the team for him to convey his message, for them to have buy-in to what his message is, and then execute. Make sense? Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, Yuko. Factors. I'm going to turn my speaker up so I can hear y'all. Factors driving organizational change. Now, we know organizational change can be a very complex process. It's going to be driven by various internal and external factors, ultimately compelling the business or the organization or your institutions to adapt and evolve their strategies, their current structures, and their current practices, kind of to meet the end goal, the process steps that's going to happen as part of that change. Technology advancements, no doubt, are I think probably the biggest and most frequent change event that happens in organizations, but I could be wrong. They are a crucial driver to change, right? Really necessitating things like upgrades to the system, processes of the system, and the tools that are associated with technology in order for the organization to remain competitive, right? Market dynamics. We got to take into account what's going on in our individual market, like Leo talked about what's going on in telecommunications earlier on, right? Which also includes the evolving customer preferences, because the customer of the phone 20 years ago is a different kind of customer of the phone user now, right? And the cable user now, or the streaming service user now, very different from 20 years ago, right? Demand fluctuations, new competitors coming into the market drive the organizational change because it necessitates a reevaluation of our current products or our current processes, right? And or our current pricing or marketing strategies. In order to remain relevant, we need to seize on new opportunities. Leo mentioned earlier on too, regulatory changes to remain compliant. These requirements serve as a really compelling driver for organizational change, especially in heavily regulated industries. All of your industries are heavily regulated. In order for you to remain compliant, what the change driver will say is, these are the new initiatives we want. This is what we need you all doing. Globalization. I know we touched on globalization a few courses ago, right? And it's really that change that's going to, that organizational change necessitating adaptation to the diverse cultures and the diverse markets, consumer behaviors that are that happen across borders, right? Across borders, to include from state to state, maybe from territory to territory or continent to continent. So globalization will have a part in that process, right? And then there, as I mentioned before, the internal factors such as a change in leadership, a change in the workforce itself. Maybe we're not hiring enough people to do the work that we ultimately want to lead to our successful change. We might need to get more people in. We might need to lay a few people off, right? These things trigger organizational change because the shifts in the organizational, something like the leadership philosophy might change, right? Every 2 years, we get a brand new commander at every squadron. And they all come in with their own way of doing it, right? That may not change out as much in the civilian sector as does the military sector, but they come in with their own ideas on what they want their organization to look like. And then it trickles down throughout that 2-year process, right? The workforce composition may prompt the reevaluations of the processes that we've been using for 10 years in the industry. Now, because we have a new director, things are going to have to change a little bit, right? Our goals are now different because the leadership philosophy is not what it used to be, ultimately giving us a new strategic direction, right? So let's look at question number 1. Anybody want to tackle question number 1? How do technological advances impact the pace and necessity of organizational change? Can you provide examples of industries that have successfully integrated new technologies to enhance their operation? We could just talk about AI, right?
Yeah.
AI, and how does that affect? How does that affect education? How does that affect marketing, copywriting, marketing strategies? And right? Anybody on that? AI affecting curriculum. You know,
we have a writing program that as long as you get the students to write into the computer, it gives them feedback, AI feedback, as if it was my feedback.
Oh,
right to them, they correct it, it grades it. And all I have to do is click a button, send feedback.
Yeah.
Send them the feedback, tell them what's correct. They send it back to me. I click the button again, and it grades it.
Wow.
Nice.
Man.
Yeah. I'm a huge, and I don't want to get off on the AI discussion too far, but Grammarly is an amazing tool. It can be an amazing tool that can be very helpful, or it can be crippling. You know what I mean? So, because it does all that work, provides all that feedback. It also checks for plagiarism, things like that. So things like that can be used to better improve the student's ability to write. But it could also make the students a little lazy.
It got me through school.
Yeah. And Leo, Grammarly wasn't around when you and I was doing our dissertation, man. So I was just using, I was using the Microsoft Word, that the one little button up there, like this ABC button. And man, I tell you, when I look back at some of the papers I wrote back then, forget about it, right?
Yeah, I yes, 100%, yes.
Yeah, right. So let's look at number 2. In your experience, how have shifting market dynamics influenced organizations to reevaluate their strategies, and what are some strategies that businesses employ to adapt to changing customer preferences and emerging competitors? Now, I know, for instance, we talked about like AI changing like in education, because now educators now have to work with AI, because we know all of our students are submitting papers directly out of ChatGPT, for instance, or wherever. So that now has an effect on the institution, because now we are the ones receiving training now about how to deal with that. But what do you see in your organization, Asbury? What do you see in telecommunication, Leo? Shifting market dynamics.
Well, I guess I talked a little bit about the market dynamics shifting within the telecommunications to more broadband based
early on, yeah.
But and that's forcing massive change to our whole entire industry. And it is something that unfortunately my industry is so slow to react to, that it frustrates me sometimes, that it's like, guys, we got to get going. We're very quick to adopt things within our organizations, like AI, and like working up, writing documentation with AI and doing those things. But as an industry,
internally,
as a whole, the whole industry itself is just so resistant to any kind of change. And it's going to cost us in the long run, as unless we can make it. And there's so many like little tiny, like the state of Iowa has like 120 small little telecommunications companies that have like 5 employees or 10 employees. And my suspicion is that if they can't make these changes and can't adapt to some of these changes, they're going to get swallowed up by their neighbors, and they're going to get picked up. So it's just, it's a tough thing. It's going to be, it's definitely making it's going to be some big changes coming for my industry, for sure.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that, Leo. That's good stuff, man. Number 3, when considering the influence of globalization on organizational change, how might businesses strike a balance between creating a local market's unique characteristics and maintaining a consistent global identity? And what are some of the challenges they may encounter in that particular process? What can they do to kind of balance that out? How they operate locally with how they're going to operate globally from a change management perspective. We know IT technology is going to continue to dominate the global space, but what can the local mom and pops do, right? Especially in the globally connected world that we're in. What thoughts do y'all have? No.
I guess I'll say it looks rough.
Yeah.
It does look desolate, because the local mom and pop is more of a, well, this is how we've been doing it.
Right.
And unfortunately, things are running faster than than you can keep up with them. I mean, everything is it's becoming easier for the customer.
Yeah.
Which, when you look at big picture on those things, a lot of companies are being forced to pay their employees ridiculous sums of money because of inflation. So I own a restaurant. I have to pay them $20 an hour. Instead of paying him $20 an hour for the next 10 years, because they're not going to go 20 that's enough. I'm going to buy a robot.
Yeah, they're doing them in Vegas.
I'm going to front end invest, and that's what's going to happen. A lot of those locals, they're not willing to take that risk, so they're going to suffer. It's unfortunate, but it is because of how the money market is working.
Yeah,
because it costs more.
Yeah.
In order for you to, these are the strategies you have to go through.
Correct.
And in that same scenario, Sean, thanks for that. In that same scenario, a small mom and pop restaurant, we think somebody might think, okay, well, that's, they show up, they open the door to turn on the lights, serving coffee, they're serving food. But when they think about, well, they serve fish. Well, they serve beef. Well, they don't grow that beef. They ain't out there fishing every day to catch that fresh fish of the day. That fish is coming all the way in from Japan every day. And it's making that long journey. That beef is coming in from Japan. Wagyu beef coming in from Japan. So you can see the globalization happening when you step back and look at that small mom and pop shop down on Decatur Boulevard and Franklin Street in my little neighborhood. But when I step back and go, okay, now I see if anything were to happen in Japan like a typhoon, that's going to disrupt the supply chain, which is going to disrupt my ability in my restaurant to serve the fish or serve that Wagyu beef that are in high demand by every customer that comes in here.
That's just like the oil and gas prices.
Exactly right. Exactly right. When there's disruptions in Venezuela, when there's disruptions in the other in Iraq or Iran or when there's a disruption in the globalization scheme, it's going to affect that mom and pop shop here locally.
You just had a bridge collapse here
in Maryland.
So everything stopped.
Man, just
everything stopped.
Yeah, exactly right. And one would think, right, if you're down on the ground, you think, oh, okay, well, that was just one ship, one container ship. That was just one container ship. We can, that shouldn't be a problem, But weeks and weeks and weeks on, you realize the ripple effect that one ship hitting that bridge has over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which creates change, which drives change management strategies that are going to be effective for that particular organization. Good stuff. These are things that we talked about today. What questions do you all have about what we chatted about today? Anything, any follow-up, reattacks?
I got a question for Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, you get the program you get from the higher ups. You have to implement it to yourself to grade your students.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? That program you get, and you don't have training on it, but yet you got to do it.
Got to do it.
How are y'all able to talk about that? Or because I ran into that before. My friend, my girl, she ran into the same problem. Mm-hmm. Man, this is the way y'all can come together and talk about it, or I don't know how. I wouldn't.
Has the ship left the port already?
Yeah.
Can we call it back?
They had the training set up, but it's communication. So we had a very volatile year in our education with our superintendent. Big deal. Yeah. He was going back and forth trying to get rid of him, and they finally got him out. And so, as he was, he was trying to do things to make himself more
indispensable. Yeah, he was.
He spent his summer preparing for another couple of years of $400,000 salary of indispensable.
Yeah.
And he started dumping programs on us and spending this.
And that was
trying to fight paying the teacher salaries by spending this money on this. He tried to manipulate the budget. I mean, it's all coming out now. But like coming out with that things, well, what choice do you have? Because if you don't do it, then I'm gonna say you're a bad teacher. Right. You're not teaching your students. Right. Then I'm gonna give you a poor performance report, and you can't. I mean, what those things that it really don't matter is like your EPRs when you get out the military. Nobody ever says, "Hey, can you show me your EPRs before I hire you?"
Your annual evaluation.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like the person that's stuck at the kind of like in the middle of it is the teacher.
Yes.
Because you have to figure it out.
Because if you don't do what they ask you to do, you're a bad teacher.
Right.
Correct.
But yeah, you've been great. All this time you've been great. And all of a sudden they implement this new program.
Yeah.
You got to follow this new program.
Yeah.
You can't just grade your papers. You got to put it on the computer.
Right.
Yes.
And that's going to take a few years of implementing and data gathering.
Yeah.
To even see the effects of it.
To see the effects. Absolutely.
Because I don't know what we taught. Because the year's over and we were at test. I have the students that did well on this reading program.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they can find theme, but I didn't teach them theme per se like I taught theme last year. So them knowing the theme of a story or passage, am I worried? Absolutely. But I did it according to the program.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when you have a system where change management is bad or leadership is not necessarily bad, but they're unskilled.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely struggle. Mm-hmm. And again, the education system is the last one that everybody's looking at globally, because what's happening is those people that are suffering in this poor education system are growing up and becoming the adults that are ruining everybody's life with all these things that they're doing. So now they're tracking back to, well, where did it start? Well, he couldn't read in the 6th grade, and he definitely can't read now.
Right.
He's 25.
And then the no child left behind strategy comes into play. Got to move them along. You got to move them along. Don't matter how good or bad they did. Got to move them along.
Give them a certificate. Give them a trophy.
Yeah.
And
that's minimum what they do.
In this district, you can only put a 50% in the grade book.
That's the lowest.
That's the lowest. You get an email.
They get a grade whether they do anything or not.
Do it or not. The minimum grade is 50%.
Wow.
If I let something get in there that's below 50%, I get an email. The principal get an email.
Oh, Lord.
Our supervisor get an email automatically from the system.
Yeah. Wow.
But
that's great. Great follow-up question there, Asbury. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I just wanted Sean to get that off his chest, because
sometimes you got to talk it through.
I'm with you.
You got to talk it through sometimes.
I've seen it before, so that's why I want to bring it up. Once you bring it off and get it off your chest,
you got to talk it through sometimes.
Yeah,
ain't nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Good stuff. Good stuff. So this is just kind of a reminder. I think y'all all are familiar with how to do this, but in case somebody's asking, class registration, things like that, how to do it, going through the enrollment now. And there's a couple of steps in there, but that's how we would do it. And the next one is coaching and mentoring, right? So for each of the micro-learning sessions, everybody, of course, as you know, will be getting a micro-learning certificate. It is not a certification. It is just a certificate. So, and you all are going to get that hopefully today here within an hour or so after we finish up here. But moving forward, what I'd love to hear from you all are your thoughts on the free micro learning sessions, your likes, dislikes, any suggested ways to improve them. Tell us about tell other people about your micro learning session experience. If this was like a good thing that you think, there's a couple people I'd like to get in on this so we can have kind of that open, facilitated, guided discussion around this particular topic. You know what I mean? Tell other people about it. And then, talk to them about how to get registered, enrolled in the courses and things like that. Try to do them at least twice a month, usually on the 1st and the 3rd Saturdays of the month, different topics each time. And also, too, when you get your certificate, I would appreciate if you would do a selfie with the certificate. I think y'all probably seen some of the selfies that I post on the LinkedIn and my social media sites. I'd appreciate that. That's going to extend our reach. And I can only do these if I have someone on the other end of the video camera, right? So the more people that knows about them, the more time I can offer this free opportunity to them. So I'd appreciate that. And it don't have to be professional or fancy. You can do a selfie with it, holding it. It's going to have your name on it. It's going to look just like that with your name on it. And then we'll get the advertise on our site. And then if you want to advertise it on your site, by all means to do so. And you can email it back to me at the email that I sent to you, your certificate, or you could just send it in a text and I'll take it from there. All right, let's do a stop share. Well, welcome back, everybody. Thank you again for being part of this. Are there any follow-up questions, concerns, thoughts before we let you have your weekend back? No? All right. Thank you again. Be safe. Look forward to seeing y'all in the next session with us here. Again, I think it's coaching and mentoring. Have a safe weekend and take care of yourselves.
All right. Take care.
All right.
We'll see you.
All right.